Kiddo, just 'cause I can turn into a goose doesn't mean I don't have bills to pay. It ain't easy being an ever after. None of us have identification. We can't get driver's licenses 'cause eventually people are going to notice that we aren't getting older. Getting a lease on an apartment without any credit history is impossible. Why, you can't even get a job without a social security number. Technically, none of us exist. That's why Veronica was so well liked. She helped us find ways to walk around the humans' rules. She cut the red tape when it was possible. When she disappeared, things went from bad to worse. Sad too, she told me she was working on a plan for us to help ourselves. She was supposed to give some big speech about it, but then she disappeared. Just then, Titania and Mustard Seed appeared. Mustard Seed stood close to his mother, holding her hand. Titania's heartbreak was plain on her face. She said hello to everyone, then turned her attention to Muff. "How is my son?" Muff stepped forward with the cocoon. Titania took it in her hands and held it close to her face. "Get well, my son. You're needed." She handed the cocoon back to the small fairy and said, "Keep him safe." Oz said you needed to speak to us, Mustard Seed prompted. He was so serious and mature. Sabrina studied his face, looking for signs that he was truly Puck's brother. They shared the same mouth and nose. That was about it. "Yes, and this is difficult to say, but we can no longer help you solve Oberon's murder," Granny Rhoda said. "What?" Daphne cried. Even Sabrina was surprised by her grandmother's words. "Why?" Titania demanded. "We were told that Cobweb killed your husband," Granny said, "but Cobweb claims he is innocent." "Cobweb is lying," Titania said. "Maybe so," the old woman replied, "but he also says he cannot turn himself in because he will be executed immediately." Mustard Seed lowered his eyes. "So it's true," Granny said. "Of course it's true," Titania screamed. "Mother is reap what they sow. That is the way of fairy." "So he will not be given a trial?" Granny Rhoda said. Titania raged. "You're just like Veronica. She was always forcing her beliefs about justice on the rest of us. Cobweb killed my husband, and I will oversee his execution myself." "Then you can find him without our help," Granny said. "Veronica and I obviously share the same sense of right and wrong." I've never heard such treachery," Muff cried. "Who are you to tell us how to behave?" "We will give him a trial," Mustard Seed said quietly. "You are overstepping your authority," Titania raised at her son. "I am still Queen of Fairy." "There's no fairy, Mother. It's been gone for 10 years, Mustard Seed said. "We're living here now. It's time to embrace our new home." "You would throw away thousands of years of our history?" Titania argued. "No, there's room for tradition," Mustard Seed said, but not traditions that oppress and create mistrust. Sentencing a man to die because that has always been the way of things is wrong. My father struggled for too long trying to rebuild that way of life. I will not allow you or anyone else to do the same. You will fail as he did. Mustard Seed! Mother, the humans have traditions of their own. Adopting a few of them might do us all a world of good. We will allow Cobweb to defend himself, Mustard Seed said, and then turned to Granny Rhoda. "You have my word." "Do we have hers?" Mr. Hampstead said, pointing at Titania. Titania gulped and stormed out of the room. "I will make her understand," Mustard Seed said. Granny regarded the young fairy for a moment and then nodded. "And we will do our best to find Cobweb." Mustard Seed returned a nod, then turned and exited the room. "So I guess we're back to the subway," Daphne said. "It's a place to start," said Granny. "Someone may have seen where he went." "We may still be down there," said Mama. "It's a good place to hide from other fairies since they're technically forbidden to be in the tunnels." "Great," Sabrina said. "Anyone got a flashlight in 2 years? Do you know how many miles of subway track there are? 656. She recalled the report she had done in the 4th grade after a trip to the Transit Museum. "It's the round with the 6 dwarves," Mama said. "They control the underground. If he's down there, they'll help you find him." Granny smiled. "And where will we find these dwarves?" everyone agreed to continue the search for Cobweb in the morning. The sun had set long ago and had grown bitterly cold, plus they were exhausted. The group returned to the hotel to find Mr. Hampstead's room had been destroyed. His bed had been torn apart and his drawers rifled through. There was a note on the bathroom door that read, "You can go back to Ferryport Landing dead or alive. Your choice." Hampstead snatched the note and crumbled it into a ball. "At least he gave me a choice," he said with a forced smile. "Maybe I'm too much trouble for you," Bess said. Hampstead shook his head. "I've dealt with bigger threats than Tony Fats." Bess gave him a big hug and a kiss on the cheek. "You take care, Dollface. I'll see you bright and early in the morning. I hope we get invited to the wedding," Daphne sang after the blonde beauty was gone. Mr. Hampstead rolled his eyes but grinned from ear to ear. "I'm going to have the hotel put me in another room. You folks go get some rest. We've got a big day tomorrow." Granny led Sabrina, Moth, and Daphne back to their room. Moth propped Puck's cocoon on the bed next to her and crawled under the covers. Sabrina lay next to her grandmother and sister in the other bed. She fell asleep listening to her sister playing Bess and Mr. Hampstead's wedding. That night, Sabrina dreamed of doves flying out of the top of a wedding cake. When Sabrina woke the next morning, she crawled out of bed and went into the bathroom in hopes of finding a glass of water to get rid of her morning breath. She quietly shut the door so that her family and Moth could sleep. She gargled, washed her face, and checked herself in the mirror. Then she screamed. Hovering several feet off the ground behind her was Puck's cocoon. She turned to find that the top of it had split open and something was gurgling inside. When she craned her neck to get a better look, a thick green gas seeped out. It had the foulest smell Sabrina had ever experienced, like rotten cabbage, dirty laundry, and string cheese. Sabrina instinctively leaped back, but the cocoon followed her, like a smelly puppy. "Get this thing away from me!" Sabrina cried, but no one came. She tried to maneuver around it, but every step she took the cocoon mimicked. She faked to the left and then to the right, only to have the cocoon block the bathroom door, trapping her inside. Then the real nightmare started. A sound like a steam whistle filled Sabrina's ears, and green gas blasted out of the top of the cocoon, filling the bathroom with a funky fog. It seeped into Sabrina. It was in her hair, in her socks. She could even taste it. She pinched her nose tightly, but it didn't help. "Sabrina, are you okay in there?" her grandmother said as she tapped on the door. "No!" Sabrina cried. "It sounds as if your dinner isn't agreeing with you. Is there anything I can do? The hotel might have some antacids for your belly," the old woman said. There was another knock on the door. "Hey, light a match in there!" Daphne shouted. Suddenly, the door burst open and Moth shrieked in rage. "How dare you!" she cried. "My goodness gracious," Granny Rhoda said. "What is going on in here?" "This thing just blew up on me," Sabrina cried as the cocoons continued to spray her with fumes. "Make it stop!" "What you've done is unforgivable," Moth seethed. "You have stolen my right. I didn't steal anything," Sabrina cried. "It followed me in here." "Moth, could you tell us what is happening?" Granny asked. Moth growled. During the lava stage, when a fairy is most vulnerable, he chooses the one person in the world he trusts the most to look after him. Once the choice is made, the cocoon marks the person with a special scent, one the cocoon can easily follow. This is an honor that should have gone to me. "Well then," Granny said as the last of the gas fizzed out of the top of the cocoon, "I suppose congratulations are in order." The smell was all over Sabrina, and no amount of washing could get it off. She took 6 showers, washed her hair, and scrubbed every inch of her body, but each time the smell returned with vengeance. She could even smell it on her toothbrush. If she hadn't been so angry, she might have cried. Still, the smell was only half the nightmare. Sabrina discovered that wherever she went, the cocoon hovered behind her, step for step. She shut at it, hid from it, even threatened to drop-kick it out the hotel window, but nothing would stop it. As she couldn't reasonably walk the streets with a flying eggplant-shaped gas bomb hovering at her shoulder, Granny and Daphne went out in search of something that might work as camouflage. Left alone with an angry moth, Sabrina ignored the fairy, watching talk shows she was certain were inappropriate for her. Moth stalked around the room with clenched fists, muttering bitter words under her breath. "What's this?" Sabrina said, when her grandmother and sister returned with a long piece of string. Granny tied one end of the string to the bottom of the cocoon and handed the other end to Sabrina. "Now, isn't that a lovely balloon?" Sabrina grumbled, knowing she looked like an unhappy child at the worst birthday party ever. Mother Goose's directions were far better than any best or odds had given the group. Mama knew exactly where to find the dwarves. They lived in an abandoned subway station underneath the mayor's office downtown. The City Hall station had been closed decades ago when the new, longer subway cars had made the platform impractical. The walk to the station was chilly, and the grooms were glad to have scarves and mittens. Even Mr. Canis had found a big pair of gloves for his claws and a scarf to wrap around his whiskered head. Moth and Mr. Hamster and Bess didn't seem bothered by the cold, Moth because of her fairy blood, and Mr. Hamster and Bess because they were too busy giggling and holding hands to notice the temperature. The group crossed a small park and found a steel door in the sidewalk that Mama told them led into the ancient subway station. There was no one out in the harsh weather, so they didn't have to worry about being seen when Canis pulled the door open, revealing a flight of steps that led down into darkness. Mr. Hamster insisted that he go first, claiming his police training prepared him for any kind of danger. It was obvious his boasting was for Bess's benefit, but Sabrina held her tongue. Hamster led the group down the steps, and when everyone was inside, Canis pulled the door closed, plunging them into darkness. "Creepy," Daphne said. "Just be patient, Liebling. Your eyes will adjust," Granny promised. "Man, it smells foul down here," Bess said. "I believe that is the girl," Canis said. Hello, I'm standing right here," Sabrina said. Before long, their eyes adjusted, and Mr. Hamster was leading them along a damp concrete passageway lined with huge pipes and electrical wiring. Every once in a while, they would pass under a dingy, flickering light bulb, which helped them see a few feet ahead. "We are close," Kenneth said, sniffing the air. "I smell them." The tunnel opened into a huge station with an arched ceiling and held up by elegant columns and cut through with skylights that allowed rays of light to shine down on the gold-tiled walls and floor. The room looked like the lost tomb of a pharaoh. At the center was a single train track where a lone subway car was parked. Sabrina had been in many subway stations in New York City, but this one by far was the most beautiful. "Hello?" Granny shouted out. Her voice bounced off the walls and echoed back. "Is anyone here?" "They have obviously abandoned this station," Moth said. Something flickered in the corner of Sabrina's vision. She spun quickly and thought she saw movement in the shadows along the far wall. She turned to Mr. Canis, whose senses were much more acute than hers. He held his finger to his lips to let her know he had seen something too, and to be quiet. "What are we waiting for?" Moth continued as she headed for the train car. "We should take this train and search the tunnels ourselves." Before she could step into the car, the station erupted with movement as 5 tiny men bore down on them, flipping and jumping, shouting and screaming. They stopped just short of the group, surrounding them like tiny ninjas from a martial arts film. The door to the subway car opened, and a 6 little man with a long white beard stepped out and eyed the group angrily through round glasses. He wore a blue uniform jacket with a patch that said MTA. Sabrina knew what the letter stood for: Metropolitan Transit Authority. The little man walked for the subway. "You're trespassing in the domain of the 6 dwarfs," he said, signaling to the others to close in on the group. "Invaders get a beating." Sabrina watched as one of the little... That seems to be the end of this video. I'll send more later.